These are the best questions to be asking when you're closing a job interview. Okay, so obviously, when we're in a job interview, a lot of the time we get told those basic questions of like, what does success look like in 6 months' time? What does a day to day look like? Etc. Etc. These are still good questions, but and genuinely, if you're going into these interviews and those are the questions that are genuinely going to help your own understanding of the position, that's fine. Ask them. But don't go into a job interview just reading a couple of template questions off Instagram or off Google, or even what a recruiter has told you to ask, and then just say that in the job interview. Because what's going to happen is, first and foremost, and this is just a pre lesson before we even start the video, is that if you're just asking questions other people have told you, you're not actually getting the answers that you want. You may be asking good questions, but they may not be that important to you, or they may be part of something that's important to you, but that may not be the core of what you're trying to understand as you're in a job interview. Because you need to remember, in a job interview, yes, they want their candidate and you want the job. So it's a two-way street. So it means that whilst they're trying to extract a lot of information out of you to see if you're their ideal candidate, you need to be extracting information out of them as well to see if you're the ideal job and you're the ideal environment that's going to unlock your best potential. So that's something to bear in mind as well, is that when you're asking these questions, don't just ask questions that other people have told you to ask. Make sure that for yourself, you are asking the best possible value questions that align to what you're after. Okay? So how do we approach this? Very simple. Number one, understand the background. Okay? Now, I know this sounds pretty ironic that I'm telling you don't ask questions that people are telling you to do, but here I am telling you to ask questions that I think are good to ask. Now, you don't have to take these verbatim, you don't have to take these word for word, but these are some other avenues that you should be exploring when asking these questions in a job interview. Okay? So first things first, try to look more into the background. Okay? Try to understand what has led to you being interviewed to this moment. Understand the need for the hire. Okay? You should be exploring the idea of understanding what the current person is that's right now doing the job. Is there a reason why that current person is leaving? Are you replacing a direct person, or are they creating a new role? Why is this new role being created? Who's the person doing the current role? What does their day-to-day look like? What's the expectations of him? What's the perception of him? How long has this job been open for? Why has this job been open for so long? What have other candidates done that you thought maybe not for this position? What does this ideal candidate look like? How can I be as close to that as possible? What characteristics are you after? These are things that you should be exploring. You should be exploring the background as to why you are here right now. Because a lot of people go into these job interviews and they don't even really consider that. And to be honest, I didn't either. When I was in my first phase of job interviewing straight out of university, I was just going to job interviews. I didn't think about too much else. But I think if you genuinely take that step back and actually try to analyze and try to just explore the idea. Now, it doesn't mean you bombard them with 15 questions, but maybe one to two. Just trying to understand the background a little bit more. Try to understand the need for the hire and try to understand where you directly fit in and why it is you that's in this moment right now and why they haven't gone through with other candidates. What went wrong with them as a comparison as to what you would be doing differently or what they're looking at you for differently. For different reasons, I should say. So really try to explore that avenue of it, I would recommend. Just a different way to approach it, basically. Number two is genuinely understanding the challenges. So this is another thing that should be very important to you, is really understanding what your day-to-day looks like and what the expectation is, okay? So for example, if you're going for, let's say you're going for an assistant role or an associate position, and the director says to you, your job is to take pressure off me, okay? Sounds good, okay? So they do one thing, you do another. You need to explore that. You need to be like, okay, so what are you doing right now that's causing, an extreme amount of work that I can take off you, and what's your focus? So when I'm taking off certain work off you, where do you then want to be investing your time and energy? What part of the business do you want to be working on in your end, so then I can take the pressure off you in other ends? Try to understand that. Try to understand these specifics. Try to understand, are you going to be, if you are supporting a director, are you doing their emails? Are you doing their phone calls? Are you dealing internally with people? Who are you dealing with internally? You know, what type of skills are you going to be needing? Are you doing their emails? Whatever it is, just understand what pressure you're taking off from them and what that's going to enable for them to do. That little bit extra is going to go a long way in your interviewing, questioning style. And the way that they're going to perceive you as well, because they're going to think, okay, this guy isn't just asking questions that Google says to ask. He's genuinely curious and he's genuinely exploring what the day-to-day is going to look like. He's trying to understand the reality of when he gets hired. So I think that's very, very important. And as well, understanding the challenges, you know what I mean? Be honest, ask them, you know, what is something that may be a struggle to anybody in the business? You know, what is something that you can sit there and look and think, yeah, this is difficult. This is something that they'll have to get used to. Is there any of that? And if so, what is it? You know, don't interrogate them on that, but just try to politely and respectfully understand if there are any challenges, what are the specific challenges, and how can you best prepare to adapt to these situations. So that's another good avenue to be exploring when you're asking these questions. And number 3, of course, are the pathways. Okay, so you need to be firstly understanding who you're answering to. This is, I think, the most important. I think a lot of people don't actually understand this part. I think recruiters and hiring managers, they say it in the job interviews, but there's never really that specific identification, I feel like. And I feel like a lot of candidates, they hear the names. They'll be like, you'll be supporting Jane. You'll be supporting Bob. Who's this? And it's like, okay, I'm supporting Bob, who is the associate director. Okay, amazing. But what does he actually do? What's his role in the company? What's his expectation? Why is he getting paid what he gets paid? And if I'm supporting him, what roles am I going to be doing that's going to be relieving stresses off him so then he can excel in other areas? So it kind of ties back to question 1, but it's the section 1, I should say. But you should really be looking into that and really thinking and understanding specifically who you're supporting and why are you supporting them? Why do they require that extra support compared to somebody else in the company of a similar level? So try to understand that, and then try to also understand the progression. You know, I think this is a really exciting part that I think a lot of grads, they ask the question, but they're kind of a little bit scared as well. I think a lot of businesses, from my own time as well working in recruitment, I've understood that a lot of candidates, they get a little bit scared to ask about progression parts because they don't want to be seen as like they're in it just for 6 to 12 months and then they're going to jump to the next opportunity. I understand that. I genuinely do. But I don't think that there's any harm in if you've asked 1 or 2 really, really good, you know, questions about the business, questions about the day-to-day that are showing real interest. If you then add on top of that as just like a little bit of like a dessert or something, just be like, and also just like out of curiosity, you know, what does progression look like in this company? Or outline it. Be like, look, you know, I've noticed that your company has a great reputation of internal recruitment and internal progression. I'm curious as to see what you would feel like somebody in this position, how they can progress internally over that next 2 to 3 years. And that's it. You've identified that at least you're going to be in there for at least 2 to 3 years, which half the company may not even be there in that time period. So for you to outline that you're willing to stay not just in the company, but in that specific role that you're going for these next 2 to 3 years is already a good sign just through your words. So genuinely explore the progression parts, understand the progression parts, and understand genuinely as well, if you can kind of get it out of them as well in this part, is try to understand what do you need to do to unlock those progression parts, you know, what would be the expectations that need to be fulfilled. So things along those lines, I feel like, you know, these are the best ways that I would say to approach a job interview moving forward. Because you've got to remember as well, yes, you are job hunting, but the business is candidate hunting as well. So they need you just as much as you need them. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask a couple questions that are genuinely very, very meaningful to you. Okay, I hope this video added some value. If you are interested in learning a little bit more or interested on working one-on-one with me, I do have a free consultation link below. It'll take you to book in a 30-minute chat with myself. I'm very keen to work with you guys and understand your personal needs on a deeper level and working on your professional career development. So click the link below if you're interested. Look forward to hearing back from you shortly. Thank you and goodbye.